What's up, mi gente? Welcome to my Monday's podcast. Let's overthink it with your host, Elefante Blanco, where we talk about psychology in all areas of life, in politics, current events, and everywhere else. So thank you for tuning in, taking time out of your day to connect with me today. Today we're going to talk about psychology in the area of politics. Specifically, why is it that more and more people seem to be falling in love with socialism in the United States? But before we do, as we always do, we're going to start with a joke of the day. And since we're talking about socialism, let's make it about that. All right? Are you ready? Why can't you tell socialists a joke? Because not everyone will get it. Yeah. And that was a good one. All right, so let's jump into the topic. Why are an increasing number of Americans falling in love with socialism? I'll give you 3 reasons why, but before I do, I think it's important to define what socialism is, because many people use it interchangeably with communism, but they're not the same. They're not the same thing. The difference between socialism and communism is, for example, in terms of property, in socialism, people can own some private property, but in communism, it's owned by the government. In terms of like the goods and services and the industries that produce those goods, in socialism, those are owned by the community or unions, whereas in communism, they're owned by the government, and they decide how to rationalize and distribute those goods to people. I had a friend who went to Cuba, and he told me that he remembers getting like a little book, like a coupons book, and on there it told him how to, how much milk they could get that month, how much butter, and it was pretty much rationalized. So definitely very difficult to live like that. Now, I know I mentioned in the beginning of the show that more and more Americans are falling in love with socialism. Even though that is true, the socialism that is really getting the most attention these days is a little bit different. They call it democratic socialism. Democratic socialists don't really believe in private property for profit. And basically, if you buy a house, you're buying it to live in it, but not necessarily to invest it later on, to sell it later on, to get some equity out of it, nothing like that. And democratic socialists believe that the means of production and goods and services, basically like factories, corporations, etc., should be owned by the workers. That's what democratic socialists believe. Most democratic socialists say that they're just trying to imitate the same systems that are in the Nordic countries like Denmark and Sweden. But there's a problem. Those countries still have capitalism and a free market economy, which, socialists and democratic socialists oppose. So there's a lot that democratic socialists and socialist lovers in the United States, should clarify. Having said all that, even though some people may not be too clear on what they believe, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because people want change. Bingo! Have you ever heard of the phrase, desperate times call for desperate measures? This phrase is said to have come from an ancient medical proverb from the Greek doctor Hippocrates. Yep, it's the same one that you and I know from the Hippocratic Oath of do no harm. That's where that came from. So I mentioned that because that is, in my opinion, the psychological root for why people are gravitating towards socialism, because they are desperate. Many people feel that it has become unnecessarily difficult to buy food, to pay for rent, to pay for the kids' stuff and other things. And they have gotten desperate. If you remember from your Psychology 101 class, there was this thing called Maslow's hierarchy of basic needs, which is a pyramid that showed the basic human needs at the bottom all the way up to the top, where it became other needs that were more mindful. At the bottom, you can see the human basic need of food, water, shelter, rest, things like that. And once one need was met, humans had time to focus on the next need for safety, and the next one for love and belonging, until possibly reaching self-actualization, something that rarely people really reach. It's been said that only a few people like Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King have actually achieved self-actualization at the top of the pyramid. But back to the point of desperation, if humans' basic needs are not met, people begin to resort to desperate measures, whether it's justified or not. I remember a passage of the Bible where even God seemed to have to give the green light to people who were desperate because they hadn't eaten for days, and they had resorted to stealing food, stealing bread. It was almost like sharing an understanding that there is a difference between a starving thief from a malicious thief. When you read this passage, it kind of sounds like God is giving a soft permission to address your desperation and steal bread. However, God did give a warning, though, about the consequences, too. Let me share that passage with you, and it's in Proverbs chapter 6, verses 30 and 31. People do not despise a thief if he steals to satisfy his hunger when he is starving. Yet if he is caught, he must pay sevenfold, though it costs him all the wealth of his house. So this is kind of symbolic to what new socialism lovers are encountering right now. They are desperate and are willing to try anything. However, once they do, consequences of socialism are pretty clear. You don't need to even dust off old history books to see the consequences. But you basically buy yourself a plane ticket, fly to Venezuela, and fly there tomorrow, and you will see what I'm talking about.
Y mira lo que hoy por hoy nuestros hijos están viendo, que tengamos que amanecer toda una noche en una cola para comprar una harina, para comprar una pasta.
So can we get into the specifics of why these Americans are loving socialism more and more? Because it's so easy to just scare people about socialism and say, don't go that way, stick to capitalism and shut up. No. How about we try to understand what they're feeling, why they're feeling desperate, and why are they willing to try even the ugly medicine of socialism? Well, there are at least 3 reasons, in my opinion, and I'll go over them pretty quickly. And maybe you'll say, well, there's more than 3, here's 4, 5, 6. If you feel that way, write it in the comment section, put it in the chat, and I would like to hear your opinion on that. So here's number 1. Many people are desperate because, number 1, the wages, the salaries are not matching inflation. It's really not fair. It's not humane treatment for human to human to do this. Just imagine this. You have the CEO of a company standing in the middle of the office and face to face with one of his employees and telling her, yeah, I'm going to pay you the same salary this month that I paid you 5 years ago, okay? It's not right. And I understand the employee can move and get another job to make more money, but why can't there be a sincere conversation about, between both, about the values and virtues of fairness, I also understand that not all CEOs are bad, and some really offer pay raises when they do. But many, many times, these raises are laughable. A quarter, 25 cents more per hour, $50 more per month, et cetera, et cetera. So for this reason, I want to encourage all workers who haven't received a pay raise in years to advocate for yourself and ask for it. In my opinion, a person's salary increase should annually match the annual inflation increase. That is the virtuous and fair thing to do as a company owner and employer, I believe. So what is the reason number 2 people are desperate and are considering socialism? Well, that is, which is pretty close to reason number 1, which is the prices of things are too darn high. Okay? So you go to a fast food place these days and the combo, costs pretty much about the same as a sit-down restaurant meal. Gasoline is too much. Childcare costs are about the same as an apartment rental. Entertainment, which is crucial for our mental health, is through the roof. Think about the tickets to the recent World Cup. In the thousands of dollars. Prohibitive. And sometimes tens of thousands of dollars. Why? Regular people couldn't really even attend the Super Bowl. I mean, the Super Bowl? Did I say the Super Bowl? The World Cup. Couldn't really attend the World Cup. In all seriousness, it was really disgusting. And believe me, I understand supply and demand. But I also understand profits. So it doesn't stop at supply and demand. If you go to the movies these days, the price of popcorn, the drink, the ticket, it's not $1 or $5 anymore for just one person. The average is about $50, about $50 per person to go to the movies. It is ridiculous. So I was just talking to my brother-in-law and kind of going back to the World Cup example, and he sent me the pay structure for teams that made it through each round. The teams that made it all the way up to the top 16 made $20 million. Top 16, not even all the way up to the final, top 16, $20 million. And the teams that made it into the final, do you know how much they made? 50 million dollars for the winners. And Spain got $50 million, and Argentina, who was the runner-up, got $33 million. That is exorbitant. And to add to all that, to all the costs and things, in general, let's talk about the taxes. Taxes, for example, in California. Many people pay close to 45 cents or 40 cents per dollar they earn, by working to give it back to the government. So, and on top of those taxes, you have the sales tax, you have the taxes on food, on your mortgage, on your car, and when you had the death tax on it. When you think about all this, you can begin to understand why people are desperate, right? So lastly, here's the last reason, number 3, of why I think some people are flocking to socialism in the United States. The healthcare insurance industry in the United States sucks. Yes, it sucks. Why? Because people end up suffering a catastrophic injury, lose all their savings, and go bankrupt because insurance barely covered anything, and they had to use up all their money. So you pay monthly premiums and make sure that you're diligent, but when it comes time to cash out, the insurance company is not there for you. This also happens with car insurance too and others, but I'll keep it focused on healthcare. It is really despicable to see an 80-year-old grandma go bankrupt because she decided to grow old. She took care of herself. And we're all going to get old. All of us are going to get old. And for this reason, I think the government money, which is really our money, should be used to cover medical expenses for humans who get old. We're all going to get old. We're all going to get sick. And it is a moral and ethical obligation to do, to have a better and more affordable healthcare system. All these little co-pays, the surcharges, all these fees, the fine print, it really has to stop. At least have some transparency, but Why do you think Obamacare was passed 16 years ago, in 2010? Because people were fed up and became desperate and said, that word again, desperate, the private sector has been given a chance to do something good over the last 30, 40, 50 years to improve the system, and they have failed. We are desperate, and now we want the government, we want to give the government a chance to help out in this area. I think that's what a lot of people were saying about that. There's always a breaking point for people. It happened to taxis where they started charging per luggage and cheating people on the meter and all that. And what happened? Because of this, Uber was born. Same thing with the music industry and their CDs, the compact disc, for all those who remember that, which would cost them about $1.50 to produce a CD. Okay, and then they will sell them to us for $15, $16, even $20 sometimes. Something that would cost them $1.50. All right, so what happened? Napster came around, and now digital media and CDs are dead. What happened with hotels? Charging people hidden fees and overcharging for rooms and things like that, and making check-in times later and checkout times earlier, and Airbnb was born, and which has evolved into something, sometimes start charging more, but in the beginning they were actually pretty fair in their prices. So my point is that there is always a breaking point. People become desperate, and psychologically, people who are now embracing and seemingly falling in love with socialism and democratic socialism in the United States are desperate and have had enough. So I understand the desperation they feel. But I would caution those people to learn from history in terms of socialism. Because even as far back as 1948, Prime Minister of England, Winston Churchill, said this. Okay. Socialism is the philosophy of failure, the creed of ignorance, and the gospel of envy. He argued basically that while capitalism unequally shares wealth, socialism unequally shares misery. So my call to action is this, to all the business owners out there, corporation CEOs, leaders, and everyone who is involved in the free market, which is pretty much almost all of us as a society, as humans, talk to each other. Just talk to each other. Have conferences to lower prices, discuss profit margins, discuss inflation-based salaries, instead of just maintaining this us versus them environment and mentality and just shouting billionaires are bad and that kind of stuff. Let's do something, right? And at least try to change the current dynamics. Because you know what? Desperation nor socialism will fix our current problems. All right, that is it for today. I hope that you enjoyed that. And if you have any comments, we'd really love to hear them. Looking forward to it. This is a very important topic and one that I'm very, very passionate about, as you probably noticed. And that is it for today. So as always, before we go, I always like to finish the podcast with the word of the day. So the word of the day is vapid. Vapid. All right, do you know what it is? I won't tell you because, like my teacher used to say, if I tell you, you won't remember it. But if you look it up, you will remember it for the rest of your life. Thank you, mi gente. God bless you. See you next time.